Well, hello, hello. It's time again for the SMC Journal podcast, the show where we're always trying to make software and systems better than they were yesterday. It's all about software engineering in today's modern IT. We talk about testing, tuning, observability, monitoring, security, resiliency, and everything else under the sun on this program. I'm Scott Moore, your host, and I really appreciate you joining me. Today, we are going to be talking about chaos and resiliency, and not necessarily the same tool or company that you may have heard of from me or others that are always being talked about. Did you know that there's a company that's only about 3 years old that has integrated with LoadRunner, a very mature load testing product that's over 25 years old? Yeah, that's pretty big feat, if you ask me. We're going to be talking to them on today's program. But let's talk about the owners of LoadRunner, OpenText, and they're a major sponsor of this program. Let's hear about them because they're the ones that make this show possible. This episode is sponsored by OpenText, the information company. We power and protect information. Our purpose is to elevate every person and every organization to gain the information advantage. OpenText works to power the ubiquitous information around us to elevate everyone. We strive to help customers simplify their systems with frictionless automation and equip them to thrive and grow in a digital world. The LoadRunner family is one of many solutions where OpenText can help. Did you know that LoadRunner has the largest community of load testing professionals in the world? Check out the QR code or go to their website at opentext.com to find out more about the LoadRunner family. Thank you, OpenText, for your support of performance engineering around the world. We love you. If you go to the documentation for LoadRunner Professional in the LoadRunner Help Center online, you'll actually see there's a section called Chaos Testing for Scenarios. And there are actually two integrations for LoadRunner. One is Gremlin, which we've talked about on the program in the past. The other is a company called Steadybit, but you may not have heard of. And Steadybit works with LoadRunner Professional on either public cloud or an on-prem environment, and you can define these chaos experiments which will run against the applications under test, and you're able to inject this chaos to find out just exactly how resilient your application is, and you get additional metrics out of the load test. So I wanted to find out just exactly how this whole thing came about and what Steadybit provides and their take on how resilience engineering is actually going in the market today. I mean, how prevalent is it and how much has it been adopted? In order to do that, we're actually going to talk to Benjamin Wilms, of the CEO of Steadybit. Let's talk to him now. Hi, Benjamin. Welcome to the SMC Journal podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Our topic today is about chaos and resiliency engineering, and I thought you might be a good person to talk to about that. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and about your company, Steadybit, and what they do?
So I'm Benjamin. I'm one of the founder of Steadybit. I'm a software engineer by heart. I started my career in 1999 as a software engineer, and I was able to work at many different companies. I was able to see what does it mean to run, develop, and also operate software in production. And I learned it's the hard way that production isn't a nice place. Production isn't a place maybe production would like to kill you, hates you, and it's hard to survive. Your applications, it's hard for them to survive in production. So let's call me the paranoid guy. I would also like every time to test the unhappy past, not always like this happy past testing where everything is fine and people are able to survive, their applications are able to survive. So I'm always like injecting bad behavior since I started my software career, because I would like to build resilient applications that are able to survive under specific load, under specific conditions I was able to see in production.
Well, I was always told by my mother that I was very good at destroying things, and I figured out how to make a living out of that being a performance engineer and breaking applications. So it sounds like we have something in common.
Yes.
In the past few years, I've reported on some of the companies that have focused on chaos engineering. It's been called chaos testing. More recently, it's been called resilience engineering. And I've heard that that's because sometimes people don't like to hear that you're going to throw chaos into their production environment. But what you're trying to get out of doing this chaos is finding out how resilient your applications are. Can you talk a little bit about that? I
Yeah.
mean, what the actual goal of doing this is?
Yeah. So by mentioning the word or the term resilience, resilience is always something in my understanding about the system in total. And by talking about the system, it's like, of course, the applications, the software, but also everything else you need to create your applications, to build them, to get them into production, and also all the people around. So different departments, developers, people are who are operating production, who are taking care about production. So it's like the whole organization. And when you are doing resilience engineering, you would like to optimize your whole organization, all people involved. And one approach to do resilience engineering is to run chaos tests, to do chaos engineering, because then you are able to see how your system, how your organization is reacting under bad conditions. So you can train yourself. You can turn it in a proactive approach by injecting bad behavior, which is called, of course, chaos. And chaos is, of course, a marketing claim, and you can get a lot of awareness, but also like, okay, chaos is something maybe bad. Should I inject something which is bad, which is killing something? And to be honest, chaos engineering isn't something you are doing randomly. It is well prepared. You are doing it in a safe and controlled way. And that's how you should do it.
Right. So is this something that everybody needs? And the reason I ask that is because when I first heard about chaos engineering, it came from Netflix. And I can understand if you have an application, maybe it's mission critical, you've got hundreds of millions of users, I could see that you've got to prove resilience and you've got to keep it very strong. But is this for everybody?
I would say yes, but it really depends on the resources you are able to provide to do so. So, for example, if you're a very, very small team, let's say 5 people, and those 5 people are building the software, they need to get the software into production. So they build it, they run it. It's really hard afterwards to get started with chaos engineering. But if even a small team is able to create new applications, improve or create new features, and use the principles of chaos engineering to check if this new architecture or this new feature is able to survive in production, they will be later on have more time to get more features out, because production is stable and production is well trained, and they have checked production in a proactive approach during the development cycle. So in total, it's for big organizations, but also for small teams.
So, having said that, how many organizations globally or worldwide would be taking advantage of this? And I say that because I keep hearing more and more about it and that it should be done. And major organizations that take advantage of it are seeing some great results. But are they the top 5%, 10%? I mean, how far along are we in the adoption
Mm-hmm.
of this?
Mm-hmm. So in the last, let's say, 12 months, we can see that more and more inbound requests are coming. So that more and more people would like to get started with chaos engineering. And it's a very broad mix of different industries. So for example, insurance companies, financing, we have some e-commerce providers, we have some heating manufacturer providers that have created an IoT-based cloud. So it's a very big mix about different industries, and they all have been able to see how unstable production is. And now they would like to turn production into a stable, well-proven environment. So it's growing.
It's interesting to note from the performance engineering aspect that just because we have determined that an application is very performant and it's fast and maybe the end user is seeing good results doesn't necessarily mean that the application is resilient. And that's an important distinction to make. And that's becoming more and more important as we rely on the cloud. And how much do you think the cloud plays into that, the driver of this? Because now we're hearing about multi-cloud strategies because we can't even trust a single cloud provider to not go down and take our application out. So does this become more important as we move to multi-cloud implementations?
It's becoming more important because of multi-cloud strategies, but also the applications, the services we are providing are more and more complex. They are no longer like deployed on one single big server, an application server. No, they are based on, let's say, 100, 200 microservices, and they all need to be in sync. They all need to be very reliable so that services can call each other, that all the dependencies are getting up at this point in time when the service needs those backend connections. And so the complexity is increasing. And the complexity is also increasing because we need to move faster. We need to get features out faster. And so it's always like this battle between, should I invest time and money into reliability, or should I get more time and money into new features? And to be honest, most of the time we are measured by the number of features we can get out into production.
That's right.
But yeah, that's something which is coming back badly.
Yeah, and what I always tell everybody, I mean, don't expect to have less testing and less verification if you've got more complexity. And everybody's telling us things are becoming more complex, which means more verification, more validation needs to be done. I'm wondering how much that's actually reaching the right ears sometimes at the right levels.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because Steadybit, you're not a super old company, but you have already integrated with one of the largest performance testing products, LoadRunner, in the world. Can you tell us about this integration with LoadRunner and kind of how that came about?
Yeah. So let me start by the value proposition of Steadybit, or like what we are doing since day one. So we are founded in 2019, and since 2019, we always are focusing that Steadybit needs to be easy to use, it needs to be safe and integrated. And by mentioning the integration part, that's where tools like LoadRunner coming in, because you need to do chaos engineering proactively in a pre-production environment. So what's missing in pre-production environments? Traffic. So we need to have an integration into a load testing tool like LoadRunner so that you can replay your existing or reuse your existing load tests to check if you are able to survive this kind of load. And now the missing part is, let's see, doing the same execution of this load test, what's going on in the system under, let's say, some latency spikes, or maybe the service is dying, or maybe a zone of our cloud provider is not reachable anymore. That's like this testing you need to do to be prepared for production later on. And it needs to be accessible. That's why it's so important for us that tools like LoadRunner are able, by just by just a drop down, that was the name, to say, okay, this load test, please combine it with the help of Steadybit and inject bad behavior during the execution. That's where we are getting in. That's why it's so important.
What would it actually look like if I inject some chaos use case during a load test, and what type of additional metrics or information would I get back from a test in my test analysis by doing it?
Mm-hmm. So as a starting point inside of Steadybit, there are two ways how you can use a load test like LoadRunner. So talking about LoadRunner, it's like your starting point that you will create an experiment in Steadybit. It's like a template. It's like you can drag and drop specific components, like let's do an AWS zone outage for 2 minutes, followed by DNS outage in a specific area of our network. And that's something you can design and execute with Steadybit. And then with LoadRunner, you are able to just reuse this already existing experiment by telling LoadRunner, okay, let's use Steadybit. Please select this kind of experiment and execute. And then by an API call, Steadybit has been called by LoadRunner, and now everything is combined. So you can execute the load and you can inject bad behavior. And then, of course, LoadRunner is able to see how your system is reacting. Is there maybe a latency spike? Are there some errors coming back from all the requests? And in Steadybit, you have even more options to see, for example, how are my log files looking like? What is going on in Kubernetes? Is there something from my monitoring system, because Steadybit is able to connect with your existing monitoring systems like Datadog, New Relic, Instana, Prometheus, and we will get everything in one report for you during the execution, and then you are able to see, okay, what's the result of this.
Awesome. So, if have you had any new feature requests? Like, where would you take the product from here as you're getting more customers and they're running more tests? Where do we take resilience engineering from here?
So we can see features requested by our customers where they are telling us, okay, our system is already so complex. It's very hard for us to answer the questions, where should I start and how should I start? So a feature which was requested is, can you create us a nice map, a map which is visualized in a way that we can see the risk we already have in the system without even to run an experiment. So now the new feature, which is coming in a beta state in the couple next maybe 2 months, one or 2 months, is we are able to create a landscape with some so-called weak spots in your system. So it's like highlighted. Here is something you should take care, because this service is not distributed quite well about different areas in your network or different zones in your cloud provider. So you are taking a risk. You can optimize. And that's something which was requested. And the second part is people would like to get more guidance in, okay, what is a good first experiment? What is something I can start right now? Is there a template I can use? So we are providing templates based on the experience with our customers, so that people can select from a list of, let's call it recipes, where they can get started very easily and fast, and can learn from big companies like Mano, Salesforce, and others.
That's awesome. I think templates and recipes are a great idea, especially for people who don't have the context yet and they may be still learning. Do you think that AI plays any part in the future of this to help not only create some of these recipes we may not have thought about that you could add to it, or taking the data that comes from it and actually making more sense out of it?
Yeah, there is a high potential. Yeah, there is something we roughly tried out because, okay, ChatGPT was getting up. Okay, what is there something we can play around? So we tried something. One of the missing elements is like this interaction, this user interface, how you should use AI in a product which is in a product like Steadybit. So how you can type down your questions. How should this connection be done? That's like this core element which is missing right now, because by just typing something down, AI right now is not possible to highlight you into your system to, let's say, an area where you should execute this kind of experiment. That's maybe something for the future.
I think everybody's thinking about this same thing and how they apply it to their product, but I think we're going to see some rapid changes because of that soon. If somebody wants to check out Steadybit, where's the first place they should go to start investigation?
Maybe there are two places. First of all, of course, steadybit.com. They can get a nice overview about the product, about the company, and how you can get started, because also there is a start free trial with Steadybit. And the second part is there is a reliability hub. And in this hub, we have listed all features, all attacks, all discovery components, and also a list of recipes where you can get your first experiment out of it, so that you can get started doing the free trial with one of the experiments, like how to check my Kafka cluster, how to validate Kubernetes. That's something you can find in our reliability hub.
And if I get signed up, I can start using the integration with LoadRunner as well?
If you have the LoadRunner tool, yes. Yes, you can, of course.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm definitely going to be doing some experiments with this very soon. Well, Benjamin, thanks so much for being on the podcast today and helping me get some of these questions answered about resiliency. You're welcome to come back anytime and let us know how things go with the product as you're developing it and developing more features.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
What about you? Are you adopting chaos and resiliency engineering? Do you know how resilient your applications are? As I said before, It's really important to know more than just that you're getting a performant application. You want a resilient application, especially if you're trying to be cloud native or you've got a multi-cloud strategy. But what do you think? I'd really like to hear your feedback on that. You can contact me on most social media platforms, LinkedIn being the primary one. But if you scan that QR code and follow the URL to my bio, you'll find out all these links that can enable you to connect with me and give me this feedback. You can also send me an email to heyscott@smcjournal.com. How did you like this episode? If you like it, maybe like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a link shortcut to it right there, or that QR code will take you directly to the page. Be great if you gave me a like and a subscribe, because that definitely helps me know that I'm headed in the right direction. So for this episode of the SMC Journal, thanks again for watching. I'm Scott Moore. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.